All right, in this section, we're gonna break down all the different travel logistics questions that you may have. And that's everything from visas and vaccinations to healthcare policies and cell phone plans. And these are often topics that get people frustrated or even overwhelmed enough not to take the trip that they've always dreamed of. People think, oh, there's just so much information that I need to learn in order to make this happen. And the truth is, if you follow step by step in this section, I will give you the most important information possible that you need to effectively make this travel dream a reality. And I know there's a ton of different information that you can dive deeper in online with each of these subjects. And with that being said, let's jump into the first and most important aspect of travel logistics, and that is passports and visas. First up is your passport upkeep. And for those of you that do not have a passport yet, please stop this video and go out and get your passport. Secondly, for those that already have your passport, there's a few things that you need to be aware of. And the first thing with that is there needs to be at least 3 empty pages in your passport, and your passport cannot expire within 6 months of you arriving to your next country. So if you arrive in a new country and you hand them your passport and it's expiring within 6 months, an immigration official will see a problem with that. On top of that, with the 3 empty pages, this is something that immigration officials look at a lot. And if they want to be a stickler, if it's a dirty passport, if it's ripped, or if it's torn, if the pages are bent in any way, you may have a problem. The goal is to get through immigration with as little friction as possible. You want to be in and out of there without them remembering your name. And for those that need to update your passports, make sure you request, either on the form or in person when you do it, that you get the old passport back. And that could be still active visas or just for keepsake for you. You want to make the request to get the old passport back when you send it in to get your new one. And on top of that, something new with US citizens in regards to passports, no longer are you able to go and ask for additional pages in your passport. You have to get a new passport. And what I just learned recently, thanks to my Russia visa adventure, is you are able to hold 2 active passports. And it has to be for special reasons. For example, I needed to send my original passport to the Russian consulate in New York to get a visa. And in that time frame, when that was processing, I also needed to be in Japan. So I went to a local passport agency in San Diego and I said, this is my situation, I need 2 passports. And within 4 business days, I did the expedited version of it. I got a new passport. So I was able to send one in and travel with one. So this is only for special circumstances, but if you write a letter, you could do this online or also at a passport agency, and you are able to carry 2 passports if you're traveling a lot or need to be sending off for visas. All right, now let's talk about visas. And the most common visa that you will receive is a tourist visa on arrival. And these are for either 30, 60, or 90 days. And you need to be aware when you're arriving how much you're getting. In some countries, you can ask right at immigration for an extended visa. And I did this in the Philippines. If you go, instead of 30 days, they give you 59 days, and then you'll need to renew it from there. Got it. That only took about 25 minutes. I have officially a visa extension. You are supposed to get 30 days tourist visa here in the Philippines, but I was told that you can go in the airport to the immigration office and get an extension right when you get here. So I officially have 59 days in the country. I'm super stoked. Let's get our bags, let's get out of here. Let's go check out Manila, come on. And speaking of renewing these 30, 60, or 90-day visas, there's usually one of 2 things that you can do. The first thing is you can renew the visa directly in the country at your consulate office or the embassy. You can go in there before it expires and say, I'd like to extend my trip. And usually they do this if you haven't done it too many times. And the second option, if that's not available, is to do what's called a visa run. And that's basically taking a flight, a train, a bus over the border. You get your passport stamped, it'll reset your tourist visa, and you can come back inside. For example, in Argentina, you get a 90-day visa. And on that 90 days, before it expires, take the ferry over to Uruguay, get your passport stamped, and even on the same day, you can come right back into the country and you have another 90 days. Now, just be aware that there are many countries where you are limited to how many days per year you can spend in the country on a tourist visa. So be aware that 90, 90, 90 doesn't add up and you go over your stay. This is a great way to see other countries as well, even for a short period of time. You pop out, you see a place, you come back in, and you are reset. Now be aware, there are certain tourist visas that you have to sign up for in advance. Australia, for example, is one of these that you have to go online, you have to get your tourist visa before arrival. So be sure you check to the countries you're going to and what is their most up-to-date visa requirements. And let me tell you, once you decide on where you're going to go, I highly recommend that you go handle the visa process as soon as possible. And to give you an example of this, about 2 weeks before I was scheduled to go to Brazil back in 2014, I realized I needed a visa. So I went to visit family in Chicago, and in Chicago I said, I'll go to the Brazilian consulate and get my visa then, it'll be fine. I arrived to the Brazilian consulate in Chicago and they told me, this isn't your jurisdiction. You need to go to New York in order to get a Brazilian visa because that's in your jurisdiction. So because of a winter storm and winter in Chicago and upstate New York, I took a train from Chicago to New York City, spent 2 nights trying to go and get my Brazilian visa. Luckily, I expedited it, I paid extra money, and I was able to arrive on time in my originally scheduled flight, but this was a huge headache. So I highly recommend, at all costs, go get your visa as soon as you know. And this will save you a ton of trip planning stress. And now, of course, for Brazil, you don't need a visa, so that's great. But this was a good life lesson and a good travel lesson. So please be sure that you plan ahead for the visas that you need in advance. Also, if you are in another country and you're trying to apply for a visa in a different country, you can go to that country's consulate in that country. That makes sense? For example, I'm American, I'm living in Argentina, and I want to get a Brazilian visa. And for that, all I would need to do is go to the Brazilian consulate in Argentina, and you are able to process your visa to that country. You do not need to be in your home country in order to get a visa. And another major logistical aspect of passports and visas is your proof of exit. And this is something that the airline and immigration both require. And while you do need this, there are ways around it. And what I do is I will buy a one-way ticket into a country. And at that point, you need to prove that you are leaving the country within your allotted time frame. So it's 30, 60, 90 days if you're on a tourist visa. And maybe let's say you want to stay longer than that period of time. So what you do is, before your trip, you buy that one-way ticket, let's say from LA to Manila. And then once you are in Manila, let's say you know you're going to get a 30-day visa. From there, within 30 days, you want to book a ticket out of there. So what I do is I buy a one-way ticket in, and then I buy the cheapest flight out. So let's say it's Taipei or Tokyo or Hong Kong for a fraction of the cost that it would be for a round-way ticket. And then when it gets to that date, I simply do not get on the flight pending I'm able to renew my visa. So for example, LA to Manila, I bought a ticket within that time frame, 30 days, here you are, immigration, I am leaving your country. Then within that 30 days, I go and I get a renewal for my visa and I'm able to stay and I just burn the cost of that return flight. And then when I am ready to leave the country, I buy a one-way ticket out. This allows you not to be nailed down by the cost of a return ticket and thus gives you more time to travel. Now there are some apps out there that allow you to rent return tickets to show proof, but honestly, I've never messed with those. You might as well just buy a real return ticket to somewhere close by that's very inexpensive. And the last 2 points about visas and passports, number one is do not overstay your visa. I don't care what the excuse, make sure you leave when you're supposed to. That is a world of trouble you don't want to get into. And the second thing is guard your passports with your life. This is an easy steal for people. I've met so many people while traveling who've lost their passport for stupid reasons. Keep it in a safe place. Do not give it to anybody when you don't absolutely have to, and you will be good to go. All right, now that our visas and passports are sorted, it is all downhill from here. Honestly, this is the most difficult logistical aspect of travel. That is the legality of being in a new country. So with that being said, let's keep moving.